Okay, welcome again. So this is for another experiment what we are going to do in the series of CL501. That is, we are going to find the dissolved oxygen, the biological oxygen demand and the chemical oxygen demand of a given water sample. What are these? Right? First of all, if we are going to use any water, we should be assured that it is of good quality, right? How do we know that a given water sample is of good quality? There are several different parameters on which a potable water is being tested. 3 of these parameters are written over here, and this is what we are going to find out. Okay. Now, what is a dissolved oxygen? I'll get some of my papers here. Right. Of course, as the name suggests, it means how much of oxygen is dissolved in water. Now, oxygen as a gas is not very much soluble in water. Of course, a very natural source, a potable source should have at least a dissolved oxygen in the range of at least 4 to 6 ppm. Right? So that a life can sustain, the aquatic life can sustain. Anything below it, you have ppm value below 1 to 2, the big fish in the oceans would die. Right? Too high of oxygen dissolved in water is also not good. Then you will get the bubble disease, right? Which really impacts the arteries and the veins of the aquatic life, and they die. Right? Now, what is an adequate dissolved oxygen? We have to find out whether a given sample can sustain life. That's the kind of information one would get from dissolved oxygen. Right? But that doesn't necessarily means that this is a potable water. Right? Any water having some oxygen dissolved in the range of 4 to 6 ppm, you can drink it. Is it like that? The answer is no. Right? So, of course, for a lot of inorganic impurities, you have different parameters set, but the 2 of the very important parameters what we are going to measure today is the biological oxygen demand and the chemical oxygen demand, also known as BOD or COD. Right? What are they? Now, if you have a water sample, right? Let's call it as water sample, right? It can have organic impurities. I'm calling it as OI. Now, these organic impurities can be degradable. I'm calling it as D, or non-degradable, like plastics. Right? Now, degradable waste is what? Like our domestic waste, like leaves, trees, grass, those kind of impurities. Non-degradable, of course, plastic being the one of the biggest culprit, which cannot be degraded by bacteria. Right? Now, what does it mean to us? If something is having high BOD value, now the degradable organic impurities, you get the value from BOD. Now, what do we do in BOD? I'll come back to the BOD in a minute again. But what exactly do we do in BOD? We take your water sample, provide some nutrition so that whatever is the bacterial load available in the water sample will start eating up the organic impurities, whatever is available. Right? I'll talk about how many days of incubation and all in a minute, but you give some days for the bacteria to measure, and then you measure the dissolved oxygen by chemical method. We will discuss it in a detail on day 1, and the most commonly accepted day 5. Right? Then you take a difference between a day 1 and day 5. So day 5 is like after 5 days of incubation. We will talk about this BOD in more detail after I had discussed all the COD. Now here you had allowed the bacteria to consume oxygen. That's why it is biological oxygen demand. How much of oxygen is demanded or used up by the bacteria to decompose or oxidize the organic impurities. Okay, now what is a COD? You are chemically oxidizing whatever is the organic impurities. Of course, that would include the degradable organic impurities as well as non-degradable. So a logical thing would be COD is always going to be higher than BOD. Always going to be higher than BOD, right? So all the non-degradable and the degradable put together, you will get using COD. And here you use potassium dichromate to oxidize your all the organic material present into the water sample. Okay, so we are going to talk in detail. We will see when we will perform the experiments like how do we do the COD. Okay, now let's talk more about the BOD first. Okay, for that let me make some space here. BOD. Now let's say I draw a small graph where on the x-axis I am taking days or time in days, right? And here I am doing what? I am taking the say how much of oxygen is being used up, or how much of the level of oxidation, how much material is being oxidized. I am taking this oxidized stuff. So you will get curve something like this, right? Around day 5, you will almost saturate the curve. That's why day 5 is most commonly used globally. But if you are wanting to do the absolute value, you carry on this incubation up to day 21. And then you are sure almost all the organic matter is being consumed, used up. So the absolute value of BOD you can find by taking the values on day 21, right? The value. But believe me, there is not much of a difference between day 5 and day 21. Okay. Now, what are the ranges? The potable water, the BOD, ideally 0. Right? You don't want any of the organic impurities in your drinking water. Right? Neither do you want any chemical or the non-degradable and degradable put together into your water. So you will prefer that my both BOD and COD are nil. So that's the ideal scenario, a wishful thinking. But according to the standards, for BOD, you are saying like, okay, BOD for a drinking water should be less than 5 ppm. Right, 5 ppm, parts per million. What's my parts per million? It is a milligram dissolved per liter. That's the definition of parts per million. Okay. Now for my COD, preferably it should be below 20 ppm. Right. Now any industrial waste, right, can shoot up these values for COD particularly anywhere to 100 to 60,000 ppm. Way too polluted, way too polluted. and there is a very strict, stringent protocol or the standard. What should be the ppm value of the water that can be discharged back into the nature? Then the acceptable value is like the upper limit for BOD discharge is 30 ppm. If any industry is consuming a lot of water, then of course they really have to take care of treating the water before putting it into the sewage or any water reservoir. The upper limit for the BOD for that particular water will be like 30 ppm, and for COD it is preferably 200, but up to 250 is acceptable in Indian scenario. Up to 250 is acceptable scenario, 250 ppm. Right. Now, what it means to us, right? What does it mean to us? Okay. Now, it means that your potable water should be in this range so that it is fit for drinking. Now, from the perspective of water purification plant, what does it mean? Is the value of BOD, high BOD value is always a matter of concern? Maybe not. So the interesting thing to take care is the ratio of BOD versus COD. BOD versus COD. Right? If this ratio lies somewhere between 0.4 and 0.8, as you know that COD is always going to be higher than BOD. If this ratio is 0.4 to 0.8, that means my BOD value is higher. What does it indicate? It indicates that you are able to treat that water by using some bacterial treatment. It's the good news that although the water is a bit polluted, but still there is a hope to make it better. But if this ratio is small, say 0.1, 0.2, then you really have to think about ways to treat that water, because most of your organic contamination is coming from non-degradable stuff like plastics. If it is like microplastics, it's even more a problem. And that's actually the problem of our current times. Alright, so how do we do it? But before you do it, I just wanted to show you this printout which I have taken. Right? I just had taken this printout which says a BOD level. Is it visible nicely? Yeah, I'll come closer to the camera. Yeah, it's good. So it says if your BOD level is between 1 and 2, it's very good. Don't think about it, just drink it. 3 to 5 is fair, 6 to 9 is polluted, 100 or above is bad. Right, so this is how the gradation, what it works globally. Now, how do we do it? First, let's try to understand the BOD. Right. How do we do the BOD? We are going to find dissolved oxygen, right? And it will be quite gratifying to know that dissolved oxygen is one of the part of BOD. Day 1 reading, what we take for the BOD experiment also happens to be your dissolved oxygen. So you are not doing a separate experiment to measure DO. It's a byproduct of what you get for doing BOD, right? So for BOD you have a special BOD bottle. Can I have one of the bottles to show? Something like this. I'll try to see if I can find a BOD bottle. Yes, thank you very much. Here I have it. It looks something like this. It's visible, right? So you have to fill it till this cork, till the brim, so that there is no gap remaining over here. because whatever is the gap the air remains, some of the oxygen will also be calculated in this dissolved form, and you will get the false reading. You will say it's more oxygen is dissolved. So whenever you are filling the water here, it has to be there till the brim. If it spills out, like in this case you will see it spills out, it's good, it should spill out. Okay, and we will see how we prepare the sample. You have to prepare for a particular water sample in duplicate. 2 bottle sets you have to make, right? One, you process it on day 1 to get the dissolved oxygen value. The second bottle, you keep it at 27 degrees, right, for 5 days, and you repeat the same procedure after 5 days. Okay, so we have to prepare the identical bottles. You take the same water sample, same volume of water sample, add all the different ingredients. There are plenty of them to be added. We will see them one by one when we will go to the procedure, and of course all of those chemicals and all are written in the handouts which are available in the link provided in the video below, right? You can download those handouts to familiarize yourself all the chemicals and the procedure. All right, so then we incubate at 27 degrees. That's the acceptable protocol globally for 5 days, right? And we repeat it. Now in case of COD, it's much simpler, right? So you take the water sample, you put the dichromate in, potassium dichromate, as it's very well known that it's a very good oxidizing agent. You reflux it for 2 hours, right? Almost like 90 degrees to 100 degrees is good, right? You reflux it, and then you do the titrations to calculate how much of dichromate is remaining, right? So you do the titration using like ferrous ammonium sulfate. Again, we will be walking through all the steps as and when we will be doing the practical. We will be showing you the demonstration of one sample for BOD and one sample for COD, right? And then you will appreciate what's going on. Okay, let me see if I missed anything. Yes, very important thing for BOD. I wanted to share one of this information. How much of water sample to use? If you expect your BOD to be in the range of like 0 to 7, you might not dilute the water sample, right? But let's say if the water sample is too polluted, just by look of it you will say, oh my god, it's too polluted, right? So if you have an estimate of what range of BOD you are talking about, then you have to have a dilution factor factored in. Okay, now these are the standard dilution charts which you will get off the internet. I had also printed one of it. I have to come closer to show it. Is it good? Yeah. Now this is again, I got it from internet. I didn't make it myself, right? So these kind of dilution factors, like for 0 to 7, there is no dilution factor, and as and when more and more BOD is expected, the water is more polluted, you do more of the dilution, right? Before you start processing. Dilution as in the bottle I showed you, to come to that value. To the bottle I had showed you, like to use that sample in that bottle, you have to do the dilution. More the BOD value, more is the dilution factor, right? More is the dilution factor, that's it. So if you have a fair estimate what the BOD value is, you can straight away use the dilution factor of this chart. Else it's bit of a trial and error what you have to do until you come to a appropriate dilution factor. And when you calculate the dilution factor, you have to factor in this particular dilution factor as well, as it is already incorporated in the formula, right? All right, so we are going to do, so I'm just going to summarize. We are going to do a demonstration of BOD. We are going to do the demonstration of COD. right? Like always, it's going to be a team effort, right? I would like to introduce my uh, team to you, yeah, and I have with me Sonali, right?
Hello.
Yeah, that's Mayuresh,
Hello
right?
everyone.
Yeah, then Rupesh, you also have to come on this side, Rupesh. Abhijit is there,
Hello.
yeah, yeah, and Sandesh is there. Ah, it's okay. You can come. No, you have to come in front of camera, so they should know who Sandesh is, right? Okay. So they all had help, right, from collecting the water sample from different sources. So what we have different water sources. So we have water source from the pond in the university campus. We have the water source from one location, the tap, the rainwater harvesting tank from one of our location of the institutes, ABS. Again, as it's a monsoon season, so we could capture a lot of rainwater, so it was good, right? And also the tap water what we get in this building. So we had done all of these collections, and these water samples what we had collected, they look fairly clean to us. So we didn't do any dilutions over here. Okay. Now, before we go on for the experiment part, let me have my lab coat. I hope this is my lab coat. Anyway, so we can start doing our experiments now. Yeah, so we can stop it and we can start with the BOD. Okay, so now we are going to start doing the BOD experiment. Now, as I already had showed you, this is the BOD bottle with 250 ml capacity, milliliters capacity, and this is the tap water. Now, the first thing we should do is the label it as the tap water, right? So that there shouldn't be any confusion. The label is already ready. You can stick it, of course, right? And it is filled till the brim. You have to make sure that there is no gap remaining in this bottle between the cork and the water level. Okay, so now we are going to add lots of chemicals to it, right? Now the first thing we are going to add is the calcium carbonate, right? Looks quite milky over here. That's a calcium carbonate solution, right? It is 27.5% weight by volume solution, right? And we are going to add 1 ml to 250 ml of water sample. Yeah, and there will be a lot of spillovers. Yeah, when you open the cork and all, so you have to make sure that you have something below the bottle to contain it. We don't want the water to run around on the bench. Yes, so there it goes. You pipe it out, 1 ml. There it goes. Slowly. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, can I show them the volume? See, it is set at 1 ml, right? It's 1 ml. Using this micropipette, we have done it. Now the second chemical we are going to add is the magnesium sulfate solution, right? Now this is like 22.5% weight by volume solution. Yeah, again we are going to add 1 ml of it. Right, okay, so there it is done. So now the next solution we have to add is the ferric chloride. Yeah, so that's the ferric chloride. It is 0.15% solution weight by volume. We are going to add 1 ml of this ferric chloride also. Yeah, it's quite colorful. There it goes. Right. So this after adding this ferric chloride, we are going to add the phosphate buffer. Now this phosphate buffer has potassium dihydrogen phosphate, potassium monohydrogen phosphate, disodium hydrogen phosphate, and ammonium chloride. Right. So it is not a, if I'm saying it's a phosphate buffer, it's not a typical phosphate buffer as you would think that it's a combination of dihydrogen phosphate and monohydrogen phosphate. It's not like this. It's a phosphate mix just to maintain the pH, and ammonium chloride is a good nitrogen source. Now the carbon source you believe is the organic material kept in the solution. It's already present in the solution, right? So both nitrogen and carbon put together will help the bacteria to grow, and we will see how much bacteria has used up the oxygen, because when the bacteria grow they use oxygen, right? Aerobic growth, yes. And then after 5 days we will see how much they have grown. Okay, so that's the phosphate buffer. Again 1 ml will be added to the bottle. Yes. So care what needs to be taken, that you are not pipetting lot of air, right? So you just pipette in the solution, and you are not pipetting an empty air tip into it, right? Now you close it. There will be some water which will be spilled. It's okay. Close it. Yeah. And then, yes, you can clean the bottle and nicely mix it. Now this way you have to make 2 sets. Now there's one set you are going to use it now, and we are calling it as day 1. Another set we are going to keep at 27 degrees for 5 days, right? So we have an incubator in the other room. We are not going right now to keep it, but we will be keeping the other set for 5 days at 27 degrees Celsius. Alright. So now hereafter the day 1 sample processing and the day 5 sample processing will be the same. You do exactly the same. One set process it right away, another process it on day 5. Alright. So now what do we do? So you incubate. Yeah. So you have to allow it to incubate for 2 hours. Right. So that it nicely reacts, and all the oxygen is like being used up, right? And then what do?
We will be adding MnSO4,
yes,
and alkali,
yes,
iodide azide solution.
right. So now you are going to precipitate out all the oxygen as a salt complex, right? By doing what? By adding MnSO4, right? Manganese sulfate, 2 ml of it, and 36.4% solution we are going to use, and then we are going to add alkali iodide azide solution, right? Can we do it without incubation? Mind you, the procedure what Mayuresh is going to do now has to be done after 2 hours, right? But for demonstration purpose we are going to do it right away, so that you know what is going on. Now from here after, everything will be like after 2 hours.
This is the MnSO4.
Yes, there's a manganese sulfate, 36.4% solution, weight by volume. Yes.
We will be adding 2 ml of it.
Yes, 2 ml of MnSO4. Yeah. Have you noticed that he is pipetting directly into the solution, right? He puts his tip into the water or into the water sample and then pipetting it out. That's the second ml gone. Okay. Of course, all of these chemicals and recipe and procedure you will find in the handout provided in the link of this video. Yes. Now we are going to do the alkali iodide azide solution, right?
Yes.
Yes. Can you show them the solution name? Yes. Alkali iodide azide. Yeah. And see what happens. So 2 ml of it. Can you see the change in color? Right. I'll hold this bottle bit up so that can you add another milliliter? Can you see? Yes. So you see a lot of precipitation happening, right? Now the question to you is, can you find out the chemistry? What is going on? What is this precipitate all about? Right? Can you close the lid? Again, there will be some spillover. That's why I said we always should contain whatever spills over. Yes, we press it, get rid of the water, the excess water. Right? Can you mix it? Yeah. And then you let it incubate. Right? You have to make sure all the oxygen precipitates out as some salt. Of course, that's the clue. There is some salt which is getting precipitated. Some oxide, that also is another clue. But find out which oxide is there and what's the role of alkaline iodide azide solution. Right? Fine. And now we cannot work with this precipitate, so we have to dissolve it, right? And we are going to dissolve it using concentrated sulfuric acid. Is that right, Mahesh?
Yes.
Yes. So usually we wait how long before we add?
So we will allow the precipitate to settle down at the bottom. So it will take around 5 to 10 minutes, and then after that we will be adding concentrated H2SO4 so that the PPT get dissolved.
Okay, that's lovely. It's almost going down, so we can go ahead and add H2SO4 already.
Yes.
That we will do in the fume hood. Okay, so can we take this bottle to the fume hood? Now, before we go for addition of sulfuric acid, can you see this precipitate? It is slowly settling down. The gravity is taking its own, doing its own magic, right? Everything is slowly settling down. As Mayuresh said, we will usually you wait for like about 15 minutes for everything to settle down, and then you add sulfuric acid. But for demo, we will. I think it's fairly ready for addition of sulfuric acid. We'll go to the fume hood. Let's walk to the fume hood. Just like that. Right? So we have to add 2 milliliters of concentrated sulfuric acid. Now, because of the noise from the fume hood, we haven't started the suction yet, but we will add H2SO4 to show you what's happening, and after that we will turn on the suction. So now Mayuresh is using this another glass pipette. We already had taken a bit from here. Show them the 2 ml mark on the
So it's a 10 ml pipette, so I will be taking it from 8 ml.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
so we have to take it to the surface of the water sample so that there should be no air bubbling inside.
Yeah,
Can you see the PPT getting mixed?
and there's a lot of turbulence going on over there. Yes, slowly he's added the 2 milliliter of sulfuric acid, and see at the bottom things are getting cleared up and becoming more yellow. Yeah, there it is. Yes, okay, so you can leave it there. And can you close the bottle? Yeah, lot of things are happening in that bottle. You can see the warm fumes coming out of that bottle. Close it, close the lid please. Yeah, we don't want to lose any of that precipitate. Yeah, else now we can mix it. Yeah, now can you see the difference? So it was so much of precipitation before, now slowly it is getting cleared up. Now what we had observed, so it takes some time for this precipitate to dissolve, so you have to let it stand for some time until you get a very clear solution, right? Do we already have a clear solution to show them?
Yes.
Yes, so we can go back there and show them the clear solution. You can take this bottle also.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can go back. Yeah, you can give it to me. So do you have that clear solution? Yeah. We already, you can already see, you can see those particles. Can I have some tissue please, so that I can clean the bottle? Can you see? I am using this white tissue background so that you can see those particle like precipitate. Yeah, it was thick precipitate before, now it has become very small, and if you let it stand for some time, right, have some patience, it will dissolve, and the same kind of solution will become something like this, right? So which is a precipitate like this will become something like this. I can use some white background to show you the difference. Is it nicely visible, the contrast? There is a particle here. I'll make some turbulence so that the particles will move. It becomes a clear like this, right? Clear like this. Now we have to titrate it, right? We can move these things aside and we can do some titrations over here, right? So you move that curate to your side, right? Out of this clarified solution, you have to take, we are taking like 50 ml, right?
First filling the burette.
Yes. So you are filling the burette with what?
Sodium thiosulfate.
And what's the concentration of sodium sulfate?
0.0125 normal.
Right. So I can show them. So we are calling it as a thio solution, 0.0125 normal. Okay. We are going to fill up our burette with this. Can we have a conical flask?
you can measure the volume.
50 ml, yes, of this clear solution, right? So see, slowly it is becoming more and more clear, and after some time it will be clear like this. So we can keep it aside so that there are no accidents here. Yeah.
So we have taken 50 ml of the water sample.
Yeah, the processed water sample, if I should put it this way, you can put it in the glass. Yes. Right. Okay. And we are using the starch indicator, but this is not the stage at which we will be adding the starch indicator. It's quite orangish in color, so you have to titrate so that the color goes light. Yeah, can you start the titration? Yeah, it's at the burette is at the 0 mark, the 50 ml mark. Yeah, it's fully. You keep doing it. Maybe it's good idea you come on this side.
So you can
Rupesh.
see it has changed to pale yellow color now compared to the initial one. You can see.
Little bit, yeah.
So at this point you have to add starch
Indicator.
as your indicator.
Yes. And let's see. Can you see? Wow. It's really dark.
So you
blue.
can see it's a blue color, dark blue color.
Yeah, it's really dark blue. Yeah.
So now we will be titrating it to give a colorless solution.
Yeah. So the transition point is blue to colorless. Go slow, slow. Yes. We have the background, the contrast background. Yeah. Now, as the blue color is lightening, you can really see, appreciate that it is a blue color. Yeah, we are almost there, one drop and we should be done. Yeah, there it is. So you can see that clear transition, that it has changed from blue to colorless. At this point of time, one needs to measure the readings, yes, and note down. Okay, so this is how you have to do for day 1 and day 5 for all the samples, right? And then you have to subtract the two. Day 1 is like when there is no incubation done. We expect that all the oxygen is there without it being used up by the bacteria. And after day 5, everything is almost consumed, and then you will see the difference in the readings, right? Okay. Now this is how you process the BOD samples. Now we have to do the COD. All right. So we will pause the video here for a minute, and we will arrange everything for COD, and then we will resume again. Okay, so now we will show you the demonstration for COD, right? So Sonali is going to do the COD for us. Okay, so we are first going to do the sample preparation, right? Okay, so we need a round bottom flask. Do we have one?
Yes.
Okay, so there you have a round bottom flask. In this we are going to add 10 milliliter of your water sample. So again, ml, yes. Of the water sample. Can you show it on the video that it is 10 ml before putting it into the RB, round bottom flask? Yeah, that's 10 ml. Yes, put it through. Right, and to this we are going to add mercury sulfate, saturated solution. That it is difficult to dissolve. and we make this solution in concentrated sulfuric acid, right? You just add little bit, the recommended amount in concentrated sulfuric acid, and then make a saturated. You will see that there is a lot of things settled at the bottom, right? The solubility is very low for this particular salt. You add 1 ml, right? There it goes. And then we are going to add,
So also we have to put a boiling chip.
yes, because we are refluxing things. So to prevent any bubbling up and accidents happening because things might spill out, yeah, you put this boiling, yes. Then we add
Dichromate.
dichromate, yes, that is 0.25 normal, quite colorful solution, that's good. It's an oxidizing agent what we are going to use. We are going to use 5 ml of it, right? So all of these nitty-gritties, specifications you will find in the handout. Please click on the link provided in the video below. There you will get all the handouts which will have all these chemical concentrations, recipes, everything will be there. There it goes. Yeah. Now can you remember for our soil organic compound estimation also we had used the same method, not similar, the same method. Yeah, then we are going to add the silver sulfate.
Silver sulfate.
Yes. It's 1% solution, again prepared in sulfuric acid, but it's light sensitive, so it is nicely covered up in aluminum foil. Yes. We have to add 15 ml of it. Yes. That's 1% silver sulfate in concentrated sulfuric acid. Yeah, so you can show them that it is 15 ml, so they can see it's 15 ml. Yes, it is. You can add it now. Right, and now we have to reflux it for 2 hours. So we can show you how do we set up for reflux. We already have kept one round bottom flask ready. So we do this refluxing in the fume hood, but for this purpose we are showing it on the bench. Yeah, so at 90 to 100 degrees we reflux it for 2 hours. Yes. Yeah, there it goes. Secure it nicely. Okay. Right, and then you reflux it. Of course, the water will be continuously circulating, right, and then it will ensure that there is no water loss when it is done. Okay, and after 2 hours of refluxing, right, the same solution, we already have one reflux round bottom flask. Can I have that? Yes, so we already had kept for 2 hours of refluxing, and we have this kind of flask which we will process it further. So the further step is after 2 hours. This is what you have to keep in mind. Okay, now you have to allow that solution, the reflux solution, to come back to room temperature. Right, you just simply don't go ahead with the further processing without cooling. So you have to allow it to come to the room temperature, and then you add 25 milliliters of distilled water. Yes. So let's make some space. We won't be needing these tips, right?
No.
Okay, so let me put it here. Yeah. Put it on the other bench. Yes. It's always important that you make some nice space before you start working. So we are measuring 25 milliliters of distilled water. Yeah. That's 25 milliliters. And then you are going to add
We will take this
mix the
into
two.
this conical flask for the titration.
And to this. Yes, and you can put water in the
Yes.
RB first so that you make sure everything is come over to the conical flask. Yeah,
So that
swirl
we
it a
can
bit.
do
Yes.
Washing and take out maximum of the extracted solution.
Yeah. So the boiling chip remains in the round bottom flask. Yeah. Okay. Now we have to add some indicator, right?
Yes.
So we have to add ferroin indicator, 0.5 milliliters of ferroin indicator. You can find the recipe of ferroin indicator in the handout. Yeah. You come on this side. Yeah. I'll go over here so that you can see the transition. It's quite magical to see this particular experiment, as you would appreciate. Can we have some white background? Right. So let's have a better white background here, a white paper.
Let's fill the burette with 0.1 molar FAS, ferrous ammonium nitrate,
Sulfate.
sulfate, sorry, ferrous ammonium
FAS
sulfate.
Okay. Can you bring it to the 50 milliliter mark? Yeah.
So I have adjusted
That's
to
it.
0.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So the burette is full. The start level. Now, can you add the ferroin indicator? Yeah. Please use this white background to show them the color change. Are you able to catch it properly, Rupesh? Yeah. Okay. He does. 0.5 ml of ferroin indicator. It's beautiful color, right? Chemistry is really magical, right? Instant color change, what you see. Now the magic is even more beautiful when we start with the titrations. Yes, can we start now? Yeah. Okay, so it's been captured. So go slow so that they can appreciate the titration. The magic of chemistry can be unleashed. Yeah. Okay, carry on, carry on. There it is. Yeah, so it is slowly going towards the greenish tinge, right? Let's see. I'm as equally curious as you people are. appreciate the change in transition of color. So many different colors what you get to see. Yeah. Slowly it is going. Yeah. Can you stop for a second? So let them see it's more green. Put it against this one. Yeah. It's more green. Yeah. Carry on. Yeah, yeah. It's becoming a bit darker. Now this definitely is green, without any doubt. Over here. Carry on, carry on. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful green color. I really like it. Yeah. Now see, there's another shade of green. That's really beautiful. Really lovely. Carry on. So definitely these smooth transitions can't be an endpoint. Now it's becoming more and more peacock blue. Is it going towards that? Yeah. See? Yeah. So let them have a fun of that color. Can you wait for a sec? Again, there is a change.
Peacock green.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Now can you see with every drop, you just put one drop and see there is a red color formation. Yeah. Where the drop, the FAS has dropped. Can you see the red color? So that kind of transition we have to see. Just go on slowly, drop by drop.
It has turned to peacock blue now.
Yeah, just let it rest on the paper. Just put it on the paper so that they can appreciate the color before it disappears. It's a beautiful blue color. Right? It's lovely. Yeah. So we are almost approaching the end point. There it is. Yeah, still the bluish is there. You can put one more drop. Yeah, can you see the difference? That blue is gone. That blue is gone, and then there is a red color transition. Still little bit bluish is there. Now it's completely red. Right, so that's your transition, color transition. It's beautiful. Okay, so this is how you do the complete processing for COD, right? So where you are using a dichromate solution in itself is quite colorful as an oxidizing agent, right? So you had oxidized whatever it is there, degradable, non-degradable, all the organic matter, you had oxidized it. Okay. Now we already had done these experiments, right? So we will be writing those values on the board now, right? You can pause the video after I had written all the values on the board, and then you can note it down, do the calculations. I'm just going to let you know the volumes of the different titran which we had used, the burette values. Yes, board. Yeah. You can walk down to the board. So, first, we should write the BOD values. Right. Remember, for BOD, it is day 1 and day 5 values. Right. So I am making two columns here. I am calling it as day 1 and day 5. Right. And the water sample. What kind of water sample? I should be making another table over here. Water sample, say day 1, it's not P, it's D, and then day 2. Right. Now, what is our first water sample?
Day 5.
Oh, that's a day 5. My mistake. Sorry. I think I'm still living in the banana ripening world. Okay. So,
Rainwater.
first is rainwater, what we captured outside during the heavy rains we had last week. So I'm calling it as rain. There it is. What's the day 1 value?
2.4.
2.4. Of course, they all are in milliliters. Right? 2.4. And day 5 is?
2.3.
2.3. That's what you would expect. Not much of a difference. You don't expect bacteria to shower from the heavens on you. Yeah.
Tap water.
Tap water. That's municipal corporation water. Yes, tap water.
2.4.
2.4. Yes.
And for day 5 also 2.4.
Fantastic. So our municipality requires some nice law. Yeah, good appreciation for supplying good quality water.
Third one is water harvesting tank.
So water harvesting tank. So we save some rainwater for the future use when there is shortage of water. Yes.
2 ml.
2 milliliters. 2.0.
Yes.
Okay.
And for day 5 it is 1.8.
1.8. All right. And then
pond water.
so we also have a pond in our campus. So we have got water from there as well. It looked clean to us. Yes.
1.8 for day 1
1.8 for day 1.
and 0.4 for day 5.
Ah, can you see what I was talking about? Right. At this stage, you can pause the video and note down these readings. Right. Of course, if you can also do alternatively click on the link and you will get these values also available as a doc file for you. You can feed into any of the plotting software you want. Right. Now, can I write the COD values? Okay. So I'll rub these BOD values here. Let's write the COD values. Okay. Now for COD values, we use distilled water as the reference, right? So I'm going to call this as sample and straight away the volume of FAS. Of course, in milliliters, the first sample being the reference value, that is our distilled water, right? What is the reference value?
12.9.
12.9. Right, 12.9 milliliters. Okay, what's the next sample?
Rainwater.
Rainwater. So I'm again writing it as rain. Yes.
12.3.
12.3. Okay. Next,
Tap water.
tap water. I'm just writing as tap.
12.1.
12.1. Okay.
Then water harvesting tank.
Water harvesting tank.
12.1.
12.1. Not bad. So we are not having our water contaminated. Yes. And
The last one, pond.
pond. Our lovely pond. Yes.
It is 12.3.
12.3. Okay, so these are the values what we have got, right? Again, either you could pause the video and note down the readings, or you can download by using the link provided in the video below. Okay, so you make your calculations, make your conclusions, like what kind of water samples we have got here, right? And prepare it as a report, right? And of course do the submission. This is what I wanted you to appreciate, that we have these three terminologies when it comes to the talk about the purity of water, in addition to lot many other parameters like pH, heavy metals, and for every metal you have a different level altogether, identification altogether. Result of here today we had what we had learned dissolved oxygen, biological oxygen demand, and chemical oxygen demand. Right? I hope you guys had fun doing or watching this experiment. Right? This is me, Avinash Kale, signing off with my friends from CBS. Bye.